This program is brought to you by Naleo TV.
Welcome to the West Hawaii Forum, the mayor's budget. And I'm Shirley David. I'm the chair of Community Enterprises. Community Enterprises is a nonprofit that's only mission is to put on these monthly forums. And many of our members are here tonight, so I want to introduce them to you. Scott Ordway Jr. on our program committee. Mike Matsukawa. Also, we have Jane Clement, who's on our program committee as well. And Bill Bugby is up here in the front, and he's also on the program committee. And with that, I'm going to turn the program over to Sherry Bracken, who is our moderator tonight, and she's going to introduce all of our speakers.
Thank you very much. I'd like to welcome all of you here tonight. Talking about Hawaii County's budget is really pretty important for all of us. And I'm curious, how many of you own a home or property on the island? Okay, how many of you drive a car and get gas? How many of you have to own the car and therefore pay the vehicle licensing fees, etc.? See, all of us pay for the services that happen here in Hawaii County, so we all have a very vested interest in how it's going to work out. The program tonight is that Karen Eoff, who is with Hawaii County Council, she's the chair of the Finance Committee, is going to explain the budget process. And then we are going to hear from Mayor Billy Kenoi as to what the 2016-2017 budget is, and hear from some of the department heads, not only about what's going on in their department, but to take your questions about specific things that you want to know about. Okay. Let's all welcome Karen Eoff, who is our council member for North Kona.
Well, thank you, Sherry, and thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. Thank you to Mayor Kenoi for bringing all of his department heads and people to participate in this panel. Anyways, by the time the council gets involved in the budget process, which is around March 1st, we receive the budget from the mayor. But prior to that, he and his departments have probably gone through months and months of analyzing the needs of our county and coming up with a balanced budget that they can present to the council. So on March 1st, when we receive the budget, we get the operating budget and we get the capital improvement project budget. So we have usually two books like this, a book like this. We also get a report it's a 6-month progress report and a kind of detailed description of the departmental review process that we also go through. We also, prior to that, the council analyzes grant requests. We have, by the county code, we have $1.5 million. Well, we have $1 million that's required to be put into the budget to give out to nonprofits who apply to the county council, and we form an ad hoc committee which spends about three days interviewing over 120 applicants. Their request this year was for over, I think, $5 million, of which we have guaranteed $1 million, and in this case, the mayor puts an extra $500,000, so we had $1.5 million to distribute. I think the mayor understands, and all of us do, the importance the nonprofits can play in a community, taking care of needs that maybe the county doesn't have to. So that's a really interesting process. The ad hoc committee does the interviews. We have to balance what they've requested against what we can afford to give out and come up with a number, 1.5 million, that's distributed. That then becomes part of the operating budget. So that all happens around March 1st. And then the community has time also to look at the budget, the proposed budget. And by April 5th, we actually hold a public hearing. It's by the charter. We're required to hold a public hearing. It's very detailed in the charter, all of the provisions for the public hearing. So we did that, and then On April 13th through April 15th, we interviewed and questions and answers and heard from all of the departments. So there were 3 days in Hilo where each of the departments came forward in front of the county council. We asked questions, they presented, the community had input, and we learned a lot about what the projections, why they needed the amounts they're asking for. And it's just a really kind of a opportunity. It's televised. Everybody can hear about the different departments and what their roles are. Then we met again on May 3rd, and I'm the chairman of the Committee on Finance, so my committee held a meeting here in Kona, at which time we had the first draft in front of us, but we were anticipating the second draft, which is required to be given to the county council by, I think it was, by May 5th. So May 5th is the date that the mayor has to submit his amended version of the budget, which is actually a more accurate reflection of the income that we are guaranteed to have from real property taxes and fees, permits, the public utilities franchise taxes. So we receive a more accurate number that we have to balance the budget against. So on May 3rd, at my finance committee meeting, there was kind of little discussion. We mainly we met to pass it on to the council. We had to vote to approve the budget and move it to council, which is for this upcoming May 18th meeting. So in Hilo, we'll meet again, and this is considered the first reading of the budget. We have both the operating and the capital improvement project budget in front of us, and so that'll be on next week, Wednesday. I've heard today from our legislative research branch that there are 13 proposed amendments to the capital improvement project budget and only 1 to the operating budget. Now, the council has this opportunity to amend, but the capital improvement project budget, we can amend that anytime during the year. But at this time, when we amend it, it's usually in coordination with what departments have told us. And those budget amendments are usually pretty benign. They don't really have money attached to them besides a dollar amount that's a expected cost of a project. But with the operating budget, when we make amendments there, we have to take the money from somewhere because we cannot exceed what the balance number is for the budget. When we go forward with our amendments, then when those are processed, this draft 2 that we would be looking at that day would turn into a draft 3. We meet again on June 1st. And that is considered the second and final reading of the budgets. So at that point, whatever amendments are still part of that process, those would all be transmitted to the mayor. And he receives our amended budget. He receives that by certified mail, and then a time clock starts ticking because we have to approve a budget by June 30th, or else we can't run the county. Right? So the mayor has 3 choices. Well, he has 2 choices. He can veto our budget that we propose, or he can sign it into law. So if he vetoes either one, and the operating budget is the only one that really would probably be something they'd have to consider if they approve of it or not. But the capital budget probably wouldn't get vetoed. But if the operating budget does get vetoed, it has to be sent back to the council. He has to have a letter explaining his reasons for the veto. And then the council has to meet in another special meeting, which would have to be scheduled probably, they would expect it would be at least by June 27th, given that we have till June 30 to adopt something. And at that meeting, the council would debate, we'd listen, and they would have to decide whether to try and override the mayor's veto, which would take 6 votes. So it's not just a simple majority anymore. It takes 6 votes of the council to override a veto. So we're not expecting that to happen, but that's the process if it should. So I'm going to turn it over to the mayor now, but I'll just state that the proposed 2016-2017 fiscal year budget, the amount for the operating budget is $462,978,628, and the capital budget includes projects that approximate $184,069,000. So thank you, and I'll be here to answer any questions, but I just wanted to share the council's role in the budget process. It's been a very collaborative experience the years I've been on the council. These last 3.5 years, so I've been through 3 budgets, and the mayor, all of all of his departments, they listen to a council member who maybe feels in their district there's a project or a service that needs to be considered. And for the most part, we've seen those things show up in the second draft of the budget. So in between the first draft and the second of the mayor's budget, we see where he has added projects or amended things to meet the needs of our specific communities. So I'm very grateful. I'd like to say thank you to the mayor and his administration for working with the council and for all of the great things that have gone on since he took office. We all attended a Blessing for a Park that was really inspirational today, to see the kids and see a neighborhood be able to have a park in their community. So I guess I'll yield for now, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much to Karen, and I'm so sorry we didn't have her PowerPoint, but you get the essence. And I think it's important to note that I think two of her points were extremely important. Hawaii County must have a balanced budget. That means we cannot spend more than the income that they're intending the county is going to bring in, and that it is a collaborative process, and you, the public, we, the public, have input into that process very specifically, and the council will listen to what the public has to say. Mayor Kenoi is going to give an overview of the budget that he has submitted, and then we have 5 of the department heads up here. Clayton Honma, who handles Parks and Recreation, Tiffany Kai, who handles Mass Transit, Deanna Sako, who handles finance, and trust me, if you ever want to get a question answered about finance, Deanna will explain it in very specific, easy to understand detail. Thank you so much, Deanna. Susan Akiyama, who handles housing and community development, and Warren Lee with Public Works, which I translate personally to roads and such things like that, big cement projects, things like that. So we're going to have each of these department heads talk, but note that there are many other department heads in the audience, so if you have a question about anything relative to the budget, the mayor will make sure it is answered. Now, before I turn it over to the mayor, boy, aren't you glad you're not going to be in a candidate forum this year?
Oh, I was just thinking how good that feels.
I know, to hear that there's one and you're not going to be there,
Yes.
that's cool. I just want to mention that in 2001, just to take you back to Hawaii County's budget, our budget in 2001 for Hawaii County was around $175 million. By 2008, when this administration took over, we had a budget of $403 million, which is 175 million doubled plus 30% more. It was pretty high, and we'd increased a lot of employees by then. When this administration took over, and probably the mayor's intending to explain this, but the budget had to go down because, as I mentioned, we have to have a balanced budget. And we were in the middle of the recession that was happening in 2007, 2008. So property tax revenues were going to be lower just because assessments of properties were lower. So this administration did cut the budget quite a bit to ultimately $375 million. Now, Mayor Kenoi, you're going to tell us about the budget, because starting in 2013, the budget started going up again, and today the proposed budget is $462.9 million, as detailed by Karen. So talk about the budget, whatever things you want to share, and then we have a lot of questions already for the department heads to get into specifics.
Okay,
Thank you so much, Mayor Kenoi. Let's welcome Mayor Billy Kenoi.
Hello, everybody. Thanks, Sherry. I'll keep mine brief. I have a great group of people up here with me and in the audience, and I want to thank them. A lot of the hard work in managing budgets, 18 departments, making sure that we handle not just the operating budget and a general fund, but 11 special funds as well. And as Sherry said, when we took office, our budget was $403 million. Initial shortfalls that we experienced range from $38 to $44 million of projected shortfall in the budget. So the first year we had cut to 386, then 376, then 367, then 365. So it was the only time in the history of the County of Hawaii where there were 4 consecutive reductions in the operating budget of the County of Hawaii. But we know we are a growing community, now 190,000 people spread across 4,028 square miles. So our operating budget, as Sherry said, has grown. But we are addressing the needs of our public workers employees, retirement, healthcare. We have 2,500 employees approximately. We have less employees today than we had when we took office in 2008, and we've always maintained that. To be more efficient, be responsive, be timely, but fiscally prudent in our budget. This year's budget represents approximately a 5.5% increase over the previous year. Our revenues did increase property tax valuations by 7.9%, so about $19.5 million. 17.6 of that 19.5 is going to healthcare, retirement, arbitration, and salary increases for employees. So there isn't a lot of growth and extras in the budget. So I do have to commend everybody for working really hard. As Councilwoman Karen Eoff, our finance chair, and I do want to aloha her for your very collaborative approach. We've always taken an approach in this new council. I know I saw Councilwoman Miley David, and I know Council Chair Drew Kanuha was with us earlier, but we make our department heads available for the county council members, so they don't just have a budget put on them, that there's a lot of Q&A along the way. So we start putting together a budget probably about September, October, so it's September, October, November, December, January, February, and then we start really kind of getting the screws tightened because we have to submit a budget, the first budget on March 1st. Then of course, as Councilwoman very easily explained, then it comes back, we work it some more, we get our final property valuations, and then we try to integrate people's concerns and priorities. Of course, every department has they believe it's a need to have. I might view it as a nice to have. But, it's always balancing because, as you said, you cannot just take something and put it somewhere. Everything comes from someplace else. So those are the difficult decision making through the years. Now we're probably managed about $3.2 billion over the last 8 years. Again, this budget has no property tax increases, but there is a question of valuation increase. As I said, there's a 7.9% increase in valuation, which is fortunate for us that we were able to meet our commitments and obligations without any property tax increase. When you guys go to register your vehicles and you have to pay more, that's the state of Hawaii. It's a little state trick they do. They increase the vehicle registration and we collect it and send it to them, the state of Hawaii. And so people like, hey, you know how much my registration was? Like, oh, the state did that. No, I'm doing that because I only get 7 more months and I don't need to go back to the legislature. Transit accommodation tax, later?
You can do it now.
Oh, so our budget.
Explain what it is.
Oh, okay. So our budget is the challenge we've had for 8 years has been revenue generation, right? The county is a subdivision of the state of Hawaii, so the only revenue generation we have is property tax. General excise tax, it's the state of Hawaii. Transit accommodation tax, the state collects it. Back in the mid-90s, they said a law was created, state of Hawaii, through the legislature to create what was called the hotel room tax, or TAT, transit accommodation tax. Now, the purpose of that tax was threefold. One, to fund marketing tourism, because it is the largest employer in the state of Hawaii. 2, to fund the operation of the Hawaii Convention Center as an integral part of the hospitality industry. And 3, to provide the counties to offset the impact of the hospitality industry and tourism on local communities. And I always use that a simple example that the state of Hawaii, when a visitor comes to Hawaii, on their airline ticket is a landing fee tax, and that goes to the state. They then get a vehicle, rent a car, and there's a vehicle rent-a-car tax. That goes to the state of Hawaii. The visitor then goes to the hotel room, and then there's a TAT, again, that goes to the state. But there was an agreement that it would be divvied up to the counties. So we fluctuated 17, 18 million, now it's about 19.4? 19.2. So, but a couple years ago, the state of Hawaii, well, it's been going on since we took office because of the Great Recession. Collectively, the state provides the counties a total of $100 million. It's like 46 to Oahu, 15 to Maui, 18, 19 to us, and so total of about 100 mil. So for the counties, the mayors, we got together to protect the state from taking it. We agreed to a cap. But the agreement was based on the fact that when the economy recovered, the cap would be removed. Well, for the last 3 years, every year has been a record-setting tourism year. So all of that additional revenue has gone entirely to the state of Hawaii. The legislature created a TAT working group. The working group came up with a recommendation that would allow our transient accommodation tax to go from 19.2 to 25 million, based on the legislators' working group. So they had a finance director from every county, they had the hospitality industry, HTA, everybody working together. They said, you know what, Hawaii County, you guys, based on a new valuation, you should get 25 million. Now, if the cap wasn't in place, Hawaii County would be getting 35 million. So we went with just predictability and certainty, because the legislature meets from January through May. It's the same time that we have to work on our budgets in March and May. So we have to really know what that number is. Unfortunately, the legislature this year just left the cap in place. So, you know, we'll take the 19.2, but if we had gone with a working group recommendation, would have been 25. If there was no cap, it would be 35. So that's a significant sum. The TAT is the second largest source of revenue to the counties. So, and if there's another way to look at the TAT, it's a tax paid entirely by the visitor. If you're to take that away from the counties, the only way to replace that would be a tax on property owners. And that would just be fundamentally unfair. And so that's been the tug and pull between the counties and the state of Hawaii. So that's the budget. I'll let specific questions. Sherry, thank you.
Relative to the transient accommodation tax, I know it's intended, I know it's intended to reimburse the counties for the money that we spend on the visitors, whether it's, you know, 911 responses or cleaning up the beaches that the visitors use. I get the sense that all the mayors got together and they all approached the legislature in a united front that we do need the money. The legislature clearly was not willing, and I can't ask you to predict what the legislature might do, but what do you think? Do you think they're going to start bending on this, or is this going to be the new normal?
Well, this is my 8th and final legislative session, and unless people in the communities said enough is enough to the state, that 4 mayors or 4 council chairs descending upon the legislature with 76 representatives, we have not been successful thus far. And again, I'm sorry, I meant the tax, right? Vehicle tax, landing tax, hotel room tax, but what does the visitor then do? And, you know, we embrace our visitor. This isn't a your visitor, my visitor. It's just the impact. They drive on county roads, go to county beach parks, use county lifeguards, get in trouble, county police, county fire, go back to the hotel room, take shower, county water, flush the toilet, county wastewater, throw away rubbish, county municipal solid waste. So the impact is clearly there. We did an analysis and came up with about a $30 million expenditure on behalf of the county to support the visitor industry. And so those are the numbers. And it's, you know, we have 4 senators and 7 representatives from Hawaii Island. I know they're working really hard to do their job, not trying to put it on them, but I am putting it on them. My concern, and I want to address this. I know there was a headline that talked about the GET. Now, I wasn't pushing it, but this is on future bills. So this is the question that I got at the county council. The question was, Mayor, how do you feel about this new legislation that gives the county an opportunity for a 0.5% increase in the GET?
And didn't the legislature say the purpose of that was to replace the fact that they're not going to give us
No,
TAT?
it wasn't quid pro. It wasn't a takeaway for a give, but it's going to come into play next session. So what they're saying is, okay, counties, you guys are always saying you want more opportunity to generate revenue. here's your chance. The city and county of Honolulu already has an extra 0.5%, and that goes to fund rail. Now, we have the opportunity for a 0.5%. But I understand people, there's a lot about GET. It's a regressive tax. It's healthcare, it's medicine, it's food. It's a tough tax. But 40 cents of every dollar is paid by the visitor in the GET. Now, my concern about the GET was that the legislature said, area counties, you guys raise them if you want it for infrastructure and roads on your respective neighbor island communities. But I have a sense that in the future, when we go back to the ledge to fight for our TAT, they might use that to say, hey, we gave you a chance, you didn't want it, too bad. And I understand the opposition. Nobody wants to raise taxes. It's no fun being the person who raise it when you have to. But we're experiencing an economic recovery now. And sometimes when things are going well, we forget that things are inevitably gonna be challenging and tough up ahead. And that's the time when county government's gonna want extra tools to address the growing needs and demands of the community. So, not popular, you know what I mean? Maybe if I was running for election, I wouldn't have voted for him. But I have a sense that the legislature is gonna use that for TAT discussions in the future.
Does Hawaii County get any part of the general excise tax now? Or does the GE tax all go to the state?
The G tax all goes to the state. And I'm sure that in speaking with state legislators, they'll enumerate a myriad of projects that get funding generated by the general excise tax. But again, we have property tax and then fees, right? User fees, but they make up a very small portion.
Well, I think that's an important point, that the bulk of the property taxes in Hawaii County, the bulk of the income for Hawaii County is the property tax for real property owners, so that's critical. While we have County Finance Chair Karen Eoff here, perhaps, Karen, you could address where the general excise tax issue stands at this point, because as I understand it, Hawaii County is not going to go forward with that. Come up here, speaking to the microphone.
I think all the counties aren't taking it, huh? Karen, did it pass anywhere? Everybody said nah. Yeah, I don't blame them.
It was pretty contentious, and so it was heard in my committee, and it has a timeline. So if we don't adopt it by June 30th, we don't have the opportunity. And from the discussion at committee level, council members were not, 2 council members voted for it, or would have voted for it, and the rest was going to vote. We're going to vote no.
Testimony was like, what, 95?
Yeah, we listened to 95% of the testimony was all, please don't raise the GET. So what happened was we voted to postpone it, so it stayed in my committee, and that's postponed to the call of the chair, meaning I would have to agendize it in order to have it move again, and this coming up next week would be the time it would have to be on the committee, and I didn't place it there. Council members didn't want to discuss it again.
Right.
So unfortunately, we're not going to have that tool.
Or fortunately.
Or fortunately. Like you said, there are pros and cons,
Right.
and we've thought about all of that, but that's the status.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Karen.
Anything else, Mayor, you'd like to say before we, okay, in that case, what I'd like to do is I'd like to ask each of the department heads who are up here to give us a brief look at some of the projects they've done in the past period of time, and more importantly, what you may have put in the budget coming up to help us get a sense as to where we are. And of course, this is a West Hawaii group, so I think they're most interested in West Hawaii issues, but since you are department heads for the entire county, you may speak about anything you want. And let's start with Warren Lee, Public Works. First of all, Warren, what does your department actually handle? I told you what I thought, concrete and things, but maybe you could be more specific.
And things and other things. Aloha. Good evening. Thank you for letting me go first, because if you let Clayton go first, you would have taken all night.
I knew that. There have been so many park things, I didn't want Clayton to hug the whole stage.
But the Department of Public Works, we're comprised of 6 divisions. The administration division, which I'm the head of. We have the automotive or the fleet. We take care of the fleet, the county fleet, with the exception of the buses, fire engines and the police cars. So the automotive also takes care not only of the fleet that I mentioned with the exceptions, but also the fuel and the maintenance of the fleet, and also the speccing and purchasing of new vehicles. The next division I have is the building division. The building division is responsible for the capital building infrastructure and the maintenance of the existing infrastructures to include groundskeeping and custodial work. The capital projects are, for example, on the building would be working with the prosecutor's office and adding the new prosecutor's office designed or to be added here at the West Hawaii Civic Center in conjunction with the build out of the courthouse down on QRT property. I have an engineering division. The engineering division has two responsibilities. One is the regulatory aspect of permitting, grading permitting primarily, also looking at violations to the grading code or the flood code. They're also responsible for new CIP type projects, whether it be a road project or a flood control project. The next division I have, which comes under the Highway Fund, and you'll hear more about that tonight probably, it's the Highways Division. They're responsible for maintaining all the local county roads, also the floodways or the flood channels on the island of Hawaii. So just talking off the top of my head, the magnitude of the amount of local roads that we have is about 1,000 miles on this island, and flood channels running several hundred miles of flood channels that need to be maintained. Also, the other division that I have is a traffic division. The traffic division is responsible basically for the traffic signals on this island to make sure they're operating properly, they're synchronized. They're also responsible for the street lights, and one of their major projects to complete by the end of this calendar year is the conversion of all street lights from to LED lamps. They're also responsible for traffic signs, markings, which include striping and sidewalks, and also the design of speed control devices in the local neighborhoods, known as basically speed humps, and the appropriate signage. You may have seen some very innovative things on the roads with the striping, like what they call the shark teeth, which is the jagged edges, which kind of gives the driver a perception of the road being narrow. When the road gets narrow, you hopefully just start to slow down. So those are the 6 divisions that comprise the Department of Public Works. Most of the budget for us going forward in 2016, 2017 is about $48 million. Now, our funding sources come from basically 2 pots. One is called the general fund, which that fund is based probably on property taxes and other things that the budget and finance people collect. The other one is the highway fund, and the highway fund basically funds the labor, the manpower, and the materials and the equipment for the highway division, the traffic division, and part of the engineering division. And that highway fund is comprised of, it's collected from what we call basically the Public Service Corporation tax, which is what the utilities on this island, primarily the Hawaii Electric Light Company and the gas company, pay to be for the privilege or the opportunity to have facilities within the county right-of-way. And their contribution is based on gross revenues, 2.5% of gross revenues. The other portion of the highway fund is generated from the fuel tax. Currently, the fuel tax in the county of Hawaii is 8.8 cents per gallon. 8.8 cents per gallon.
What is the other counties one?
The other counties, Kauai, Oahu, and Maui County, generally they're running about anywhere from 16 to 18 cents per gallon. So
Hawaii County is 8.8 cents per gallon. The other counties are 16 to 18 cents per gallon. Warren has asked me every year to raise that gas tax.
And the answer always is, I have,
Sorry.
sorry.
You gotta use what you get.
We work with what
GET,
we
gas tax, not too popular, especially when gas is like $4.50 a gallon, right? You know, now it's come down, and so the discussion will come up again at some point.
Right. So 8.8 cents per gallon, and yes, we could use more funds, but we work with what we have. It is what it is. So what we've done over the past 8 years is we've taken, we've managed our projects primarily by the fuel tax, and most of the public service corporation tax actually covers the labor. So the fuel tax covers basically the materials on the asphalt and for the signals and the equipment that the traffic division uses. Now, what we've been able to do with that is that we've taken the highway fund and we've leveraged what we can from projects that qualify, leverage those projects with what we call state transportation improvement funds. So generally, a project, if it qualifies, being a certain type of road, like a major collector road or a minor collector road versus a road off in a subdivision, it can be funded if we qualify 20% by the county, 80% by the federal government through the state of Hawaii. So for example, Kaiminani, Phase 1, from Mamalohoa Highway down to Ahiahi Street. That was Phase 1. 20% county, 80% federal. Phase 2 of Kaiminani, Ahiahi to about the Anekeo Kololi, or the volunteer fire station, 2080. The third portion, which is what the county is, and those were contracted out, by the way. The third portion, which is going to go from Anekeo Kololi Highway, right by the entrance to the front of volunteer fire station, down to the intersection of Kuika'aumanu. The county highways group will be doing that work. And it's not a reconstruction, but it's going to be a repaving, cleaning up the shoulders, and putting in a secondary leveling course to make it look like it's all brand new from the top to the bottom. And so when Queen K gets finished, Phase 2, it'll be super nice up to the intersection. Again, the 2080, what we've, other things that we've done in the past, over the past 8 years, road-wise, is first of all, the first big one when we came into office was the Anekea Kololi Highway. Mayor said we're going to do it. We use ARA funds, American Reinvestment and Recovery Act funds. That was basically, it came out to be about 2080. We had some in-kind donations. We did the construction management. We did the project management. So most of those funds were provided by the federal government and again, monitored through the state of Hawaii. That was about $33 million. So Phase 1 from Palani to Kealakehi, and we were able to manage it so that we could do Phase 2 portion, the major portion of Phase 2, which was give us a roadway from Kealakehi to Hinalani. So in the future, going forward, there is a plan to do Phase 3, which would take us from Hinalani to Kaiminani.
Warren?
And that is in the planning stage.
Any idea when that might be done? That's a question that's been submitted, when that third phase might happen?
Yeah, notwithstanding well, first of all, what we're working on is we're working on what we call a permitting stage, which basically says, okay, this is the, let's find an alignment, first of all. Where do we want to enter? Well, we know where we're going. We know we're going from Hinalani and Aneke. We're going to Kaiminani. But the question is, you go up, down, or straight, or go curvy all the way. And a lot of it depends on what the survey finds during the engineering. If you do it strictly on a topographic survey, you may still have conflicts with archaeological features. You may have places where you may need large culverts. So you try to avoid a straight line. You basically, the road curvature or the road architecture will follow what the terrain gives you and what the archaeological features give you. So that is the stage that we're at right now. Going forward, we need to do the what we call the PSE, preliminary work on the permitting and the preliminary engineering.
Do we know what the cost of Phase 3 might be, and has that been submitted for capital improvement budget yet, or are we too soon?
It is in the capital budget, the line item for Phase 3 of Anikia Kalole, subject to funding, and its estimate is about $40 million at this time. That's in 2016 dollars. So again, when as you go through the permitting and engineering process, if this thing gets pushed out, it could go a little higher based on what is the inflation rate or the escalation rate.
We're trying to work to get some money set aside to make that easier to move forward, to be STIP ready. If we could get it STIP, we could
Meaning the state will assist with the funding?
80-20, so that would, if we can set aside $10 million, that should cover it. That would be our 20% portion. I know Councilwoman Eoff is very committed to seeing, so we're trying to get as much done as we can to prepare Anikia Ho'okalole going from Hinalani to Kaiminani.
Yeah. So we really need to manage the big projects, the 2080, and the part that we really have to manage also with the state is the 80%, because normally this island receives about $13 to $15 million per year in STIP money. So if we go forward, let's say with what Mayor Kenoi is saying, we put $10 million aside, we still need 30, so that'll take care of the STIP allocation for about 2 years. So all of these projects need to fall into line, and we have other projects on the books already ready to be issued. These include the Ali Drive culvert by Konatiki, that bridge culvert needs to be rebuilt. So that is an improvement. That's another STIP project that we're working on. Also up in still part of West Hawaii, between Saddle Road opening up was a great travelway for the east-west, west-east travelers. But also there's still a lot of traffic that goes east to west along the Hamakua coast. So there's only one road between Honoka and Waimea. So being that initially when we came in about 8 years ago, the state of Department of Transportation was looking at a bypass road. Since then, the bypass road has kind of gone on the side, the Waimea bypass road. So we're taking steps with the STIP program to see how can we improve the existing road within the existing right-of-way. So the way to improve that is if you have two-lane traffic, one lane in each direction, what we're planning right now is to put in pocket left turn lanes, so that if you want to make a left turn across the traffic, you can pull into this pocket so that you get the traffic in the back of you can proceed forward. So that is the first phase. The second phase, probably the next administration, would be to make that portion of roadway possibly 3 or 4 lanes. But that would mean that there would have to be the right-of-way would have to be widened. It's not wide enough right now. So there's a number of other projects that we did, because one of the things that the mayor wanted to do when we came into office about 8 years ago was said, Warren, I heard it, we need to work on Makai connectors in Kona. So there were 2 that was at the top of the list. There were Lako and La'aloa, because everything was coming down Roa Poinciana. So we were able to complete La'aloa. That was opened up a couple years ago. Working on Lako right now with the private landowner who wants to develop at the bottom of Lako Street. So those drawings are in the plans are in let's say about 80% done. So a lot of things going on in West Hawaii. Mamalohoa, meaning Ali Drive extension. When we came into office, the Ho'okalia, Ali Drive, Mamalohoa Highway, also known as the Ho'okalia bypass, was not open to the public. We were able to work with Ho'okalia and open it up on a partial basis, first of all, during the peak morning and peak evening hours, and that eventually became, that road was eventually turned over to us from Halaki'i to Kalaipapa. Now we're working on the construction, on completing this by September of this year, the next portion, the southern portion, which goes from Halaki'i to Napopo intersection. So things are moving.
You started
pretty-
paving, huh?
What's that?
You started paving.
We started paving, yes. Yes, we started paving.
Aaron Steen told me.
Aaron Steen told me.
I learned more from Aaron Steen than Warren Lee. It's amazing.
We're going to give, Aaron Steen told you, okay. I told him. I told him to tell you.
Thanks, Warren. So that's about $100 million in infrastructure and just road improvements in West Hawaii in the last 8 years. I remember coming around and listening to the community in 2007, 2008, and it was loud and clear that people felt the lack of infrastructure, community in West Hawaii, that lack of infrastructure was a great sense of inequity and lack of fairness. And so that was our commitment, and I want to thank Warren Lee's leadership, Brandon Gonzalez, all of the division heads. They've done a wonderful job. It's never been no can, always can. When Waikoloa, we were told that needed shoulders so people could make it safer. We did it in-house. It's been very responsive. Queens Lay path, I know is back there, but Warren has always been a can-do, let's get it done, let's make it happen. And so I couldn't ask for a better public works director. Thanks, Warren, for taking up everybody's time. They were just hoping you keep talking so they don't need talk. But I know it's an important issue here in West Hawaii, and we're very pleased with the progress.
Well, there's something I'd like to mention, and I just want to confirm this, and Mayor, you can confirm this, and Warren. My recollection of things that went on prior to this administration was that we constantly overran project budgets, and so I understand that you have been pretty firm, and if a contractor comes in and says, I can do it for X dollars, you pretty well hold their feet to the fire.
Oh, Sherry, you should see what Warren do to people.
Well, I
It's
guess
not pretty.
I appreciate that.
I mean, I sit contractors down. I go to pre-construction meetings, every parks project with Clayton, James. I sit in a meeting with the contractors. When we're discussing, before we start, shake their hands, look them in the eye. There'll be no cost overruns. There'll be no extra bid at one number and come in at an inflated number when we're halfway through the project. Warren's been especially focused on...
He's a mean guy, in other words.
People try to run around him and they go, Warren Lee is killing us. And I was like, and Warren would tell me, Billy, that's their bid. Then they shouldn't have bid so low. It's their loss. So there haven't been many projects. Projects have come in on time and on budget, both parks roads. We've had one glaring example, Ka'u Gym. Was supposed to be completed at the end of 2014, but it's not costing us any extra time. I just feel sorry for the kids who cannot get into that facility, but the floor had to be ripped out, between the general and the subs, and they had to redo the whole gym flooring, but that wasn't an extra cost to us. We held the contractor's feet to the fire, but that's the one project that I would think of out of $603 million in projects that came in over time.
Well, on Keohokalole Highway, I know that you were able to actually put it further. I mean, it was supposed to end at Kealakahe, and you were able to take it to Hinalani. And I think we all appreciate that it goes that much further. So since we don't have Senator Daniel Kenoi anymore to get those kind of funds for us, it's important that we in the county know how to save money, and it's a good model for what comes up in the next 4 to 8 years, because we need to hold our county guys' feet to the fire for this. So thank you for that. I did get one question about Anakeohokalole Highway and the intersection with Hinalani in the afternoon. There's a lot of backup right now, and the question is there a plan to put a stop light in there or some way to relieve the congestion, which is inevitable when you have this road, Hinalani, going up and down with no stop, and this road at the stop sign? Is that a plan or not a plan?
Right now, the intersection at Hinalani is what we call a three-way intersection, and the right-of-way is to Hinalani. Right. So the backup, I've been in that too, in the afternoon hours. So right now, a traffic signal costs us about $1 million. So we have other places where we want to spend the money for traffic signals that we have. primarily down in the Kailo, in the village area. And that's our priority right now. So there are no immediate plans to install a traffic signal at the Hinalani and the Anakeakaloli. Certainly, when the Phase 3 of Anakeakaloli gets extended, I'm quite sure you're going to need a traffic signal.
Sherry, if I could may interrupt, I'd also like to thank Bobby Command and Wally Lau, who did an outstanding job of taking their project through. As we all know from West Hawaii, projects don't move unless there's archaeological intensive surveys, intensive communication with community members, lineal cultural descendants, and having Wally be able to navigate and shepherd that project through also led to getting done on time, on budget. So I want to thank both of them.
Although Mayor thanked you for taking everybody else's time is not taken. So we're going to go to Susan Akiyama now, and we, as you have questions, we'll make sure they all get asked and answered. But Susan, why don't you give us an overview of what is it exactly that you do, and particularly focusing on, well, West Hawaii, of course, but I know you work island-wide on the particular issues that you handle.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. So the Office of Housing and Community Development is responsible for the planning, administration, and operations of the county's housing programs. And we do that through 3 separate divisions. Our Grants Management Division oversees our federal grant programs. We have the Community Development Block Grant, Home Investment Partnership Program, and we also have an employment and training program, the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. All of those grants are administered through that division. We also have an existing housing division, and through this division is where the Housing Choice Voucher Section 8 programs get run. But in addition to that program, there are a lot of other programs that get managed through that division. We run a residential emergency repair program. It's a low-interest loan program, a tenant-based rental assistance program, which is kind of like a voucher program as well, family self-sufficiency, financial education and literacy programs get run through that division as well. The third and last division that I oversee is a community development division. And through this division is where a lot of the housing development projects happen. And I'll tell you a little bit about those projects in a second. But in addition to those projects, through this division, we administer the HUD Fair Housing Program. And we also administer the 201H section of the Hawaii Revised Statutes through that division as well.
Is that kind of like the HUD program? We probably don't know what that revised
No, the
statute
201H is a state program. It's a state law. And it was created to help facilitate and expedite affordable housing projects, in a nutshell. That's what it is. So we also run that program as well. The development projects we're especially proud of. The county is not a developer really, but we've engaged in some of these projects because the need is there. So we finished a 96-unit affordable rental housing project on Hinalani Street called the Homes at Uluvini. And there are 24 transitional units there as well, which means that there are services being provided through those units. We are also on the last phase in Waikoloa of a fee simple home project, 91 homes, and we're very, very proud of that. We were just out there this morning, and it's beautiful. And I can't help, when I walk through there, to think that we've housed 91 families there. It's gorgeous.
It's beautiful. If anybody hasn't seen it before, if you go Paniolo Drive in Waikoloa, or you turn towards the school, and you go on, is it Evi Kupuna? What is this?
Evi Mo'o.
McGee.
I can't remember.
Come on. Just go Paniolo Drive.
Yeah.
Because the county would put that
Past
road
the
in.
school.
But if you go behind, it's a beautiful project. The park went in first. We wanted to create a quality project. 75 homes are completed. Families are living there. It's workforce housing. So it's our local families who qualify for homes, 10-year buyback, 290,000, but it's beautiful. It's such a, it makes you feel wonderful.
$1 million views.
Yeah, well, I was wondering how I can qualify for whatever. We met with Undersecretary of Housing and Urban Development, flew in from Washington, D.C. to meet with us, meet with Susan on a project. I went out there to meet. But it's really beautiful, Susan. It came out really nice. It's a project well done.
Yes.
How much does it cost for a person to purchase a home there?
The last phase of 16 homes is ranging anywhere from the mid 200,000. I think the highest price home is about 320, 300. Okay.
But it's about
300,000.
280, 290.
Pretty good.
Two-star homes. It's beautiful.
Well, you know, that leads me to a question that came out of a letter to the editor by the former housing director, which is that that particular project, before the county stepped in and took it over, the previous developer, and I guess this was around the time frame of 2006, actually had the homes priced in such a way that there was he says, your predecessor, there was a $100,000 amount of profit put on the top of those homes, $50,000 that was going to the developer and $50,000 that was a kickback to the county. And if I understand the philosophy of affordable workforce housing correctly, that's
not
maybe not legal, maybe it is legal, but it sounds definitely
I'll jump
unethical.
in. Susan goes, what if I get asked that question? I go, I take them.
Well, I mean, how are we preventing
She's
that
like,
from
I gotta
happening?
answer that. I get it.
How are we preventing that from happening? Because that sounds
What it was
wrong.
originally, the county, we're in for $46 million. And it was gonna be a perpetual affordability project, meaning it was gonna be leasehold.
Meaning the county was going to own it and do the
Right,
leasehold.
and people lease, and the price point was $385,000 for leasehold.
Wow.
That didn't make much sense. And so when I first asked a former managing director, former finance director, Bill, would you ask your child to buy into that project? He said, absolutely not. He said, why would we ask anybody else to buy into a project like that? It was gonna have maintenance fees. Even if you're a landscaper at the hotel, you'd have to pay somebody to maintain your yard. So we brought all the smart minds together. Jesse Wu, who is now like a big shot at HUD, was one of those we brought in, and we said, look at all the affordable housing projects in Hawaii that works, and let's take the best of it. And what we came up with was a no-profit, fee-simple, 10-year buyback. That way families would invest, would care for the community, and if they were able to meet the commitments and obligations for a decade, that'd be a living, thriving, vibrant community. And so there's no profit. As you notice, the price point is probably the most affordable in West Hawaii. And again, I'd ask everybody to take a look at it because it's a really quality project, well built, well done, simple, not too many frills, but it's very beautiful. It's a beautiful community.
So the answer to my question is to prevent what to me sounds like a pretty corrupt situation is diligence.
Sure, it was
honesty. I mean, to me that just sounds bad.
The county created a nonprofit called Waikoloa Workforce Housing, created one subsidiary called Hawaii Island Housing Trust, and then they would sell these homes. So what we did was just dismantle everything. Take over Unidev, who was the contractor initially, developer, was in lawsuits from Arizona to Louisiana. Instead of being sitting ducks, we took the initiative and filed suit against them for some misrepresentations and overdevelopment of the project, overall development. And so we were able to dismantle and clean the deck of all of that and start anew. And that's what they did.
Sorry to interrupt your discussion, Susan.
No, go ahead.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Susan. I got you.
Said that way better than I could have. And the last project I want to point out is actually one that we're working on right now. It's a 32-unit micro unit project, and I really have to thank Warren because he's been a great partner in this, and he's been helping me to get this project developed. And I have to tell you that it's true because when I walk onto the property, the only thing he says to me is no change orders. That's all he ever says to me is no change orders.
So he treats you like he treats all the other contractors.
I'm just looking.
He's fair.
So we are in the process of developing that project, and it will be to house chronically homeless individuals.
And what's it like? Micro unit. We don't know what that is necessarily.
Imagine a 40-foot container that will have a bedroom and a bathroom. It's going to be finished on the inside and the outside. You won't hardly be able to tell that's what the structure is, but it's very sound.
Does it have windows?
Yes.
So it's not just like a box that people live in?
Oh,
and,
no.
Okay.
No.
It's pretty amazing, actually.
Yes.
It's a $2.5 million project. How many units?
32.
32. I know the question came up in the micro units. It's a Western Hawaii emergency shelter friendly place.
Yes, at the same
Location, industrial area, and we're moving towards 24/7
24/7,
service to address what is a growing homeless challenge. We're not unlike any other community across the country or around the state, but we're very excited about this project. Completion when?
October 31st.
And so 32 individuals will be able to move into these units?
Yes,
Good. How do you pick them? Which of the many homeless people get to live there?
very good question. So there is a tool that's being utilized nationally. It's called VI SPADAT, but it's a vulnerability tool. It's actually like a one-page survey that helps to determine how at risk the individual is. So the process will allow us to identify the most at-risk individuals, and those with the highest scores get to move in. You know, we want to be able to serve the most chronically homeless individuals. There will be services offered at the units, and that is the complexity of serving this population, is that it's not just about building units and providing beds. You have to have services attached. So we've invested a lot of time in this partnering.
A question was asked about affordable public housing relative to being energy efficient. What are you doing about that?
Yeah, there's actually a lot of discussion going on, you know, and I meet monthly with housing directors across the state, and HUD's at the table. There's a lot of workshops and things, so we are learning and bringing back these best practices to the county.
Well, are they going to have solar panels, or is it just going to use, no offense to the former head of Helco, but just going to use Helco? I mean, because it is expensive
You know,
to
and
produce
actually, when
electricity here.
we were working on the design for the micro-unit project, we were actually talking about that. I don't think we ended up with the solar panels for the units in this phase.
Yes, not in this phase. The whole idea was to get this project out before the emergency declaration
Right.
ended. And the bids did come in above our estimate.
Yeah.
But the mayor was able to procure some additional funds to make it work. So right now, that would be the next phase, any energy efficiency. There are fans in the room. The containers are insulated, and they will even have their own, not the metal roof, but a wooden type roof.
I guess, you know, the concern is that we're trying to use more renewable energy, and so basically relative to all kinds of affordable housing, is there a plan to move in that direction so that we're not having people who already have pretty low incomes incur high electricity bills, because they are high?
Yes, well, we are utilizing those programs at Uluvini, actually. So, yes, we will continue to
Okay.
invest in that.
And then this is 32 micro units. Clearly, we have more homeless people than that. What do you see as the future? What's the next plan?
Well, I'd like to see the success of this unit, and if it is successful, I would like to discuss these types of units, perhaps in other communities across the island. You know, the state and the federal government there's been a shift, and they've not cut us off from doing these types of emergency or transitional shelters, but they are highly recommending that we move away from that and do more permanent supportive housing. Housing First funding coming down the pipeline supports that, and a lot of other state funding I'm hearing is going to be supporting those models.
And the 32 micro units, so can people live there forever?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
it is essentially permanent housing?
Yes.
Okay.
So, you know, at this time, I would like to say that I really would like to get this project off the ground and make sure that we're successful in running something like this, because we can build it, we know we have the money to build it, but can we operate it? Can we, you know, so I think there's a lot of those things that need to get fleshed out. And then hopefully, it'll be a model that we can replicate.
Somebody also asked, there are a lot of homeless, well, specifically on the island, the homeless point in time count in January showed there's around 1,300 homeless people, and those are the people that they actually see. If there's homeless people they don't actually see that day, they don't get counted. So the question is, people have asked, is there any way to open a gym, open something like Glide Memorial Church in San Francisco, which lets people spend the night, because it appears one of the biggest fears of homeless people is having to spend the night at Old Airport or someplace just crouched in a doorway. Is there anything the county is considering relative to that?
You know, I have to tell you honestly, any suggestion is on the table. You know, I don't think we've turned away from any kind of discussion. But if you can imagine a warehouse situation and the gamut of the types of homeless that you would have coming in, so you have single males with dual diagnosis, you have families with children.
And dual diagnosis is substance abuse and mental health.
That's correct.
Wrapped up.
Right, together. It's very difficult to do a huge facility like this and mix those populations together. So there's a lot of consideration. Seems like a quick, easy fix, but it's really more complicated than that.
Just want to say, oh yeah, did that one, energy. And you covered HUD and their recent announcement that they do want to move away from temporary or emergency housing into more permanent. And isn't that part of what you need to get from HUD, is what their specific issues are going to be with that? You were mentioning to me before that you hadn't really gotten any directive, because there was a Civil Beat story just yesterday that said that a lot of the agencies on Oahu are of the belief that they cannot offer emergency temporary housing anymore to people with mental and substance abuse problems, because HUD wants it to be permanent housing, which in Hawaii is not, it just doesn't exist like it does maybe in some other parts of the country.
You know, like I said, I hear often a shift in the models that we serve the homeless, from temporary to permanent. I have not gotten any notice that is telling me that funding is ending for those types of shelters.
Okay.
But I will be checking into that.
Thank you.
Another thing we're doing is not just, it's to tackle the entire spectrum that we have, and the recent landlord summits. Did you cover it when I walked out?
No, I haven't actually.
We have a homeless task force, and Dr. Reese Nunakawa from our office is working with Susan.
Yes.
We had a landlord summit in Hilo and Kona, invite other landlords, and I think we got 36 commitments.
Correct.
From folks to house homeless families. We've looked at geothermal relocation funds and housing projects. So this is a tough one that will be with us for a long time. But again, we have to remember it's not just the roof, it's all of the wraparound critical services that our nonprofit partners and providers are working with us on. That is the key.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mayor. We're going to skip you, Deanna, because you're mostly, well, we're going to talk to you about financial management, so we'll save you till after we talk about how they're spending all the money that you manage. Tiffany Kai, you are Mass Transit. Why don't you give us a brief overview of what Mass Transit is and how it is working in West Hawaii and what your plans are? please. And also, by the way, I'd like to mention, you may have noticed that Naleo TV is back here. They are filming this, and so you will be able to see this on Naleo TV, and then the video will be up at the website, westhawaiiforum.org. So if you want to re-look what all these guys say, you may, or tell your friends, relatives, and everybody.
Just want to give you a quick inside joke. Every time I meet with a department head, and they see Deanna and Lisa walking out, everybody like cancel their meeting. So when you said we're going to skip Deanna, a lot of people want to skip that meeting too after.
Oh, no, we're going to get to Deanna. We're going to grill Deanna.
Go ahead, Tiff.
Aloha, Tiffany Kai. Basically, I'm responsible for the Mass Transit Agency, and we provide friendly, safe, efficient public transportation for Hawaii Island. We're semi-privatized as we contract out for bus drivers to operate our Helion bus system. Our services operate daily from 3:15 a.m. to 1:15 a.m. with limited services on Sundays and holidays. Our ridership is made up of seniors, disabled, students, and the workforce who travel to medical facilities, shopping centers, social services, and work. In addition to our Helion bus services, we also provide a shared ride taxi program. Ridership for fiscal year 14-15 amounted to 944,738 riders, which is really good. We have 55 buses in our fleet. I have 5 mechanics who are responsible for the safe operations of our vehicles. In addition to that, we have 6 administrative staff members in our office. Some of the projects and programs that we're going to be focusing on, starting July 1st, we're going to begin our Helion Kako paratransit services in Hilo and in Kona.
Your Helion what?
Kako, which is it's like an extension of Helion, but it's going to be a paratransit services.
Define paratransit. What is paratransit?
So paratransit services, it's called a complementary paratransit service. So it basically complements your fixed route services. It could either be door to door, curb to curb, or origin to destination. And what we're going to be doing is providing that origin to destination services to complement the fixed route for people who cannot access our regular fixed route services. So there's going to be a process in place where they would come in and apply for the services, and they would have to go through an assessment to see if they qualify or if they're eligible to use the services. The services will be up to 1 mile off of our main corridors in Hilo and Kona. So basically, our intra-Kona routes, let's say one of the main corridors that is used is Ali'i Drive, so we'll go 1 mile off of Ali'i Drive to pick up an individual who qualifies for the service.
And what does an individual have to do to qualify? And you might want to talk more into the microphone. But who's eligible for this?
Basically, it's a functionality assessment that they will have to go through. So anyone, and it doesn't mean that they have to be disabled, but someone who cannot navigate regular public transportation will be eligible to use the services.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. So
And then
that's
more?
one of the projects that we're going to be doing. So again, that starts July 1st. Come June, we're going to be starting the eligibility process. We're going to continue to work on our bus shelter program. So for Kona, we have Uluvini Transitional Housing. We're having a bus shelter there, the corner of Henry and Queen Ka'ahumanu Highway, Target in Kona, and the Royal Kona Resort. Other areas outside of West Hawaii will be Na'alehu and Keau and Lapahoihoi. In addition to our bus shelters, we're also going to be developing a county-wide master plan for transportation. The comprehensive plan will forecast a 20-year look ahead, improving the overall transit system required to meet Hawaii County's changing needs. The plan will also be consistent with the general plan. Let's see. Other projects that we have going on that will be completed by December of this year is our mass transit base yard and maintenance facility. So right now, our current base yard, we share with Public Works, which really doesn't accommodate mass transit. It's not going to accommodate our future growth. So this way, we'll have our own base yard that is 5 acres, and it'll be able to accommodate future growth of mass transit for whatever reason, for all of the expansions that we will have. And lastly, we will be developing a bus app as well. So
You'll be developing a,
bus app.
oh, cool.
Yeah,
And
when
what
is that?
what
When
will
is
it
that,
do?
By the way,
Yeah,
I'm asking for that app.
I know.
What
Where
will
are
it
we
do?
with that app? We're making you nervous over here. No,
Making her nervous.
Because on Oahu, I found out we're working with IT. I asked, hey, because we have such a large area to cover and we have a flag system, which means people in rural communities, you don't have a bus stop, so you have to wave the bus down in some rural communities. So we're developing an app whereby, because so many people have smartphones now, that you can track the buses to see where one is coming from, how far away it is, so that people aren't just guessing, did I miss the bus? Is it a little delayed? Is it delayed a lot? And so that app will be operable
By the end of the year, we'll have it out.
October.
Right answer.
October, can't wait for the end of the year. Might have a glitch, might not be ready.
Cool.
No.
Anything else, Tiffany, you'd like to say before Clayton gives us an update on parks?
No, I think that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Clayton Honma, Parks and Recreation, give us a sense as to what your responsibilities are. I don't want you to do an hour's worth of all your responsibilities in all your parks, but we do need to know sort of what's been happening, particularly on the west side of the island. And I know today you celebrated a victory.
Yes, we did. Thanks, Sherry. Here at Parks, we oversee several divisions as well too. In our operating budget, we oversee, the golf course in Hilo, the Panaeva Zoo, cultural and education. Under cultural and education, we have the county bands that are under their jurisdiction. We also have our parks maintenance staff that does all the maintenance for all of our facilities throughout the island. And we also have our recreation division, which includes the pools and our Ho'olulu complex. And last
And
but
the
not
Ho'olu complex, why don't you explain what's in that, because people may not recognize that name.
The Ho'olulu complex consists of the Hilo Civic Auditorium, Auntie Sally's, Edith K. Kanakaole Tennis Stadium, Walter Victor Stadium as well too, for a baseball complex out there in Hilo. And yeah, one of our biggest complexes on the island. And last but not least, we also have our elderly activities division, which consists of nutrition, retired senior volunteers program, our STEP program, our senior employment program, and coordinated services. Also within, I guess, parks maintenance, it includes all of the cemeteries that we got to cover as well too on the island. So we have a vast amount that we got to cover island-wide.
How many cemeteries? 32.
36.
36 now.
36.
I mean, that's amazing, yeah. When you think about Parks and Rec, you get children programs, senior programs, and 36 cemeteries on island. That's amazing. Tough job or whatever.
Yeah. So, with that, we also have, lava viewing programs under us, the Waipio Ranger programs as well too. We cover your beach parks and pavilion rentals, camping at all of our beach parks and some of our facilities as well too. So we cover a whole amount of, a wide gamut within our department. Our budget is about a little over 26.5 million, so we're like about 26.6 this year that we submitted for, and some of our increases have come with the opening of the new Waimea District Park that we have that is being built currently. We plan to staff that park and also put in maintenance support for it as well too. So that's just in a nutshell what we have here at Parks. Our priorities, however, on this side of the island, we have been blessed with getting funding for many projects, and like you said today, we opened up a park out there in Kona at Ali'i Kai Park in Council Chair's Drew Kanua's district. And you know, it's one of the parks that's been on the books for like 40 years. And again, just having the blessing from the council member and the mayor in prioritizing the project and putting the funding to it was absolutely a blessing for the community on this side. I'm going to just go over a large list of projects that we get going on the west side. I'd like to recognize our parks planner and now my deputy director, James Komata, out there, because he's the guy who's been leading the charge in all of our projects.
Stand up, James.
James, stand up.
That's James.
Just an outstanding person in our department, and yeah, he's behind all of this work that's being done. Along with the opening of Ali'i Kai Park, currently we have the Honaunau Rodeo Arena renovations that is going on. Following that, we have up in Kohala, the Hisoka Gym, where we're doing the floors there. We're doing changing of a scoreboard in one of the ballparks there. We've just redone the gate ball pavilion there as well too, and we roofed the stage area of that park. Going forward, we got some electrical issues with some of the lightings that we're addressing right now there, and we're doing the courtrooms up in by the Kamehameha statue area as well too. Next on the list, we're doing the Kailua ball field lights, both the soccer field, and we're installing lights at the new soccer field, and we're changing out the lights at the ballpark down there. We also have the canoe hale that is being built, the second canoe hale. Following that, we have tennis court lighting, which we're in partnership with USTA in bringing lighting there.
That's just lighting? I thought they were going to redo the tennis courts entirely from what they said.
You're going to get resurfacing as well with the lighting. And
Watch out, Sherry play tennis.
I know.
No, it's not because of the fact that I play tennis.
You know that.
And possibly, I think, maybe a couple of kitty tennis courts there as well too. So we'll see how the funding comes out with that.
The tennis courts are nice now. They don't need to, so I just don't want to think I'm not complaining. But Clayton, while you're talking about Old Airport Park, I know that a lot of people were paying attention when there was the big park planning going on for the whole Maka'eo Park area. What's the delay? Explain that. Where are we with it, and when's it going to get going?
Well, the basic stall in that is with State Historic Preservation.
You know, I'll jump in there because that was my call. We spent. It was so heartbreaking, Sherry. The community was involved. We had Maka'eo Park planning. We had $10 million.
$9 million.
$9 million sitting there, ready to proceed. The state gives us the park, executive order, and the next thing you know, State Historic Preservation Division, after the state gives it to us, tells us, you got to do all this extensive archaeological work before you can proceed.
And that was after they owned it for all the years.
It was like on the 11th hour. And that would have it was heartbreaking because we're going to grass the whole area. There have been improvements throughout Maka'eo. In fact, I went today to drive slowly through, and I'm so disappointed in not being able to follow through on that project. We couldn't believe it was so extensive, the requirements and requests from the state, that it would have been cost prohibitive, and it would have gone beyond our term in terms of time. So we had to decide, hey, do we Do we continue to do Kona Aimen, do Yano Hall, do Ali'i Kai, do all the parks we can around Maka'e? The community volunteers are doing an amazing job. We're doing, of course, the Kanuhale, but drove through today, I was like, oh, this place, this is supposed to be a wonderful project. We continue, I saw Boca Hui earlier with the Kealakei Regional Park planning up. I know Councilwoman Eoff is putting in 1.5 million in a CIP budget to move that project forward, which has extensive stakeholder involvement. But yeah, Maka'eo was just one of those where a state comes down, they give you a big list, and you realize we're not going to get through that list realistically. And so we had to make a decision with the time and resources we had, and we had to move on from Maka'eo. So that was, it's a bummer, but we're hopeful, right, Ken, that we can move on, and hopefully the next administration have it prepped and they can get that done.
Part of the funding for the tennis courts, though, Sherry, is coming from that 9 million that was
Right.
designated
Yeah.
for Maka'eo. And even the lighting project that's happening for the soccer fields and the baseball fields is being, the money's being spent at Maka'eo.
So what we tried to do was double the usage of the recreational facilities there. So if we can put lights, the kids don't have to, end practice at 6, that we can use it throughout the evening. So we're hopeful that there'll still be heavily used facilities there in Kailua and Maka'eo.
Yeah, and moving on with the projects, though, we got Konawaina swimming pool that's gonna happen as well too. We're doing the solar system there, changing out some pumps, putting in VFD in there to regulate the flow of the pumps, so it's not running as high and saving on electrical costs at that pool. We also have Mauna Kea recreational area, which the mayor fought so hard to go and get. And some of the improvements are done, but we're finishing off the rest of the improvements that need to get done there as well too. So,
And everybody understands that was Mauna Kea State Park. State pretty much ignored that for forever. And then you argued with them until they finally relented and decided to give it?
And
Is that-
credit
you were
goes
gen-
to Senator Gil Kahele, Senator Malama Solomon, who were close with Governor Abercrombie.
And you were diplomatically involved.
Yeah, we went to Governor Lingo, and finally we were able to get that park. And I hope people feel welcomed when they travel across island now. Clean facilities. We put in a playground. People said, "Why do you need a playground?" And now you see it packed every day with families laughing.
If you haven't been to the Mauna Kea recreation area, it really is nice. And I concur. I see kids jamming the playground every time I go up there.
It's going to be
kinda fun.
and we're going to have walking paths. It'll be exercise, workout areas, a safe area. I mean, if you notice, the shoulders are really wide, so it really lends itself to riding your bike and getting healthy up there. You talk about high altitude training. The goal is to get to 6,000 feet. The park's at about 6,500. So we're hoping that that park will serve as a positive recreational area. There'll be a certified kitchen going in, so nonprofits and community groups can go up there and use it. And we're hoping that the cabins are all usable by August, September.
probably September.
Okay.
No, we gotta go to rules too for that, for camping and, for that park. So we'll be going to the public for rules soon. And, yeah, we've gotta prepare up so that we leave it in good hands for the next administration to move forward on. So, that is another one of our priority projects of getting, we need to get done. Moving forward, thanks to Public Works also for paving, not only Mauna Kea recreational area, but also our Ho'olulu complex, which, is a huge undertaking and something that I think the whole island will appreciate is the pavement of both places, Mauna Kea and the Ho'olulu complex. But moving forward, we have, community center playground coming up down in Pahala. We have one in Nalehu as well too. And yeah, last but not least on the list is, the first phase for Waimea District Park. So that's another, big priority on our list. But all that I mentioned, is gonna get done before we get out of office. And that is our focus in Parks and Recreation, in getting these projects all completed before we get out.
Clayton, are all the swimming pools closed on holidays? And if so, why?
No, not all of the pools.
Okay, because the question is, why are the pools closed on holidays when children are out of school, but of course parents are still working? Is there a way to correct that?
Certain holidays, the pools are closed, not all of the holidays.
Is there a way to have them open when parents are logically working, like it's not July 4th or, you know, a holiday where most people
When
are
is it
off?
closed? What holidays are the pools closed?
Most of the pools are closed like on Christmas, on New Year's. Those major holidays, those pools are closed. All of our small ones are actually closed. Our big ones like KCAC, Pahoa, and.
Where's KCAC? Oh,
Kona
that's here, Kona
Community
Pool.
Aquatic
Okay.
Center, yeah. We try to shift around people's schedules so that we can keep the pools open as much as we can. However, certain holidays, we keep them closed.
Whoever asked the question should talk to Clayton after, just to make sure, because their concern is that they're closed on holidays, so clearly they're having an experience that they need to
Yeah.
talk to you
absolutely.
about. Anything else, Clayton? Because I do have you answered the question on Old Airport, so temporarily, we're done with you unless you have more to.
Oh, no, that's it.
Let me just look at the other part of my list and see if we've, oh, yes, Hilo Golf Course. How much is the budget for Hilo Golf Course? Because clearly that's something that's coming out of the county budget. It benefits golfers in East Hawaii primarily. I don't imagine most golfers from West Hawaii are going to drive over there. And the county council made a decision to not provide a subsidy for golf for West Hawaii golfers. So give us the scoops on the Hilo Golf Course. First of all, how old is it? How long has the county had it?
Well, the golf course, the municipal golf course came over to us back in 1948, so it's been a long time since we had the golf course. But our responsibility, you know, at all of our facilities is to maintain them. And so we went out and sought funding to maintain the golf course. We had buildings ready to fall down and, you know, holes that needed to be redone. However, on top of all of that, we're under a lawsuit for ADA improvements. So the ADA requirements was also we were also required to do that under court order. So that being said, we did a whole renovation for that golf course that's going to last us for the next 30, 40 years. And you know, our budget came in at $18 million for that golf course.
You mean for the renovation? Or is that the annual?
What is the operating budget?
Yeah.
Like 380, what is it?
1.3 million.
Yeah, the operating budget is
No, subsidy is 470 this year.
The subsidy is 470.
This year.
470,000 goes a year. I know at one time we had 500,000 as a golf subsidy for West Hawaii, trying to balance, and difficulty. I would put it this way: it's a mere hour and a half with the new Daniel Kenoi highway. Just encourage everybody to just drive across the island. It's safe, it's easy, it's not that far away. But it's a county facility. We should all enjoy it island-wide.
absolutely.
Okay, so back to my question.
No more talking about Hilo projects already. Stay in Kona.
Okay, what's the annual budget for the Hilo Golf Course, and how much is reimbursed from the fees? Because I think that's what the questioner wants to really know. Because essentially, how much are we as a county paying to keep the Hilo Golf Course going above and beyond the income it produces? Because it does produce income.
That's the subsidy,
That's the
470,000.
Okay,
Did you want the total?
yeah, sure.
The total is 1.3 million. to
Okay,
operate.
and so it's what we end up paying, what isn't collected in golf fees is $470,000.
Yep.
And the county council, and you did make a decision to not provide golf subsidies for West Hawaii, which
Yes.
it is what it is.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else, Clayton?
No, that's it.
Okay.
Choke something.
Warren, quick question. Any hope for Ali'i Parkway? You're not supposed to turn that off ever. You're supposed to be ready to talk just like that.
Didn't want the heavy breathing to come through. Ali Parkway, it's still on the books as a capital improvement project, but our focus over the past 8 years has been, again, the Anakea-Kalole Highway because of the start with the ARA opportunity to have ARA funds and then the Malcolm Mackay connectors. So pretty much we put Ali Parkway on the back burner. That is something that we still have the drawings. We're still doing the update on the EA is over 10 years old, so we're updating the environmental assessment right now. And I think what's important is that the State Department of Transportation, our State Department of Transportation, is presently studying the area. They are doing an EIS for the Kukini-Mamalahoa Highway from Nani Kailua, I believe, in that area up to King Kamehameha 3. So, they're going to, when you go through that EA, you look at alternatives to say, is this what we want to do? Are there alternatives? And I think obviously what's going to come up is that is Ali Parkway an alternative? Because once we finish the Hokulea, the Ali Drive extension, that could tie in. That goes right now, it would go in from Napopo intersection to King Kamehameha 3, and then either you head down the old Ali Drive, existing Ali Drive, or you go back up to Mamalahoa. So that Ali Parkway would be a natural route into Kailua Village, but it's still in the books.
Okay. And Ali'i Drive merchants complain that there is really not enough parking for folks coming into downtown Kailua Village. Is there any plan to provide additional parking?
Who's complaining now?
Who's complaining? Would you like their names?
So the
answer the question.
8 years ago, especially when we did the West Hawaii Civic Center, this issue came up because I think about lack of parking spots in the village has been a long-going issue. So we revisited what was done in the past. How do you increase parking? Right now, the public parking is available in certain spots on Ali'i Drive, and there's also a public parking lot just below Kuakini and Palani. So first thing I told the mayor was, I asked the mayor, I didn't tell the mayor nothing, I asked the mayor, if we want to control this parking situation, because what happens is that the vendors may be complaining that during the day, all the parking spaces are taken. People complain that, so we looked at the usage along with the material that the KVBID provided us. It appears there's a number of users of this parking facility. And during the early mornings, it's the paddlers that go practice out in Kailua Bay. During the evening, it may be the tourists that prefer to park free at the public parking versus paying for parking at the hotel or the resort that they're staying. So Mr. Mayor, how about putting in parking meters? 25 cents an hour. We're not charging for parking, Warren. This is a public facility. How's about 5 cents an hour? Read my lips. So we're not charging for parking. It's public parking.
We gotta wrap this up already. Warren falling apart over here.
So one way to control the parking is to keep the flow going.
But there have been lots for sale in the downtown area. Is there any thought that the county wants to buy a lot and make more parking? Is that an option?
I know Bobby was looking at that at one point. It was investigating parking options in Kailua, but there isn't many, right?
There are not many, and we even looked at, with the Kailua KVBID, we looked at perhaps changing the traffic flow on Ali'i Drive. Yeah. Instead of making it two ways, you could make it certain portions one way, and you could increase the on-street parking. But that meant, it wasn't yeah, let's do it type of thing. I mean, there was a lot of, well, not a lot, but there was resistance and reasons why it shouldn't be done. So yeah, we looked at it, but I think based on when I go down there, which is during the day, I find that all the parking stalls are not taken. So it got to be, I think, during certain times that the parking, and who's parking there? Again, it could be people parking all day. So one of the things that we are looking at is perhaps, since we don't want parking meters, we're putting maybe limit parking to so many hours per day, or so many consecutive hours. So we're looking at how to regulate this efficiently and fairly.
Clayton Honma, why is the parking lot next to Hawai'i never open? And never is not the right word. It is rarely open. It is open when somebody rents Hawai'i, but what about the rest of the time?
It's basically, saved up for the users there. So you get them both ways, right? If the users use it based on the parking is open and all of the merchants are using that parking, the users will not have parking for the activity they're having there. So basically, we keep it closed, and whenever there's use of the facility, we'll open it up for the users.
Susan Akiyama, are the micro units less expensive than factory-built manufactured houses, like buying prefab houses? Is that something that was considered? I know micro units are definitely the trend nationwide.
Right, so I think that the units came out, per unit cost was about 70,000, 75,000 per unit. It's definitely lower. We looked at several models.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Deanna, Sako, we've saved you for last. There's been a lot of discussion about Hawaii County and taxes, property taxes in West Hawaii versus the rest of the island. And in the analysis that was presented in West Hawaii today, West Hawaii was considered to be everything from Hawi through Waimea, Mauna Kea Resort, all the resorts, everything down through actually Drew Kanuha's district. It was not considered that Miley David's South Kona district was part of West Hawaii, even though it actually is. So the first thing is, how do the property tax assessments get done? How's the decision made on how to assess anybody's home or property?
So each year we look at it by areas of the island or neighborhoods. And so we look at current or sales throughout the year. The last few years we've had a lot of foreclosures, and because there was such a significant part of the sales on the island, we did have to consider them, which actually kept the market kind of depressed for a little while. So this year we have much fewer foreclosures, so we didn't have to include those in the area. But so some areas saw much more of an increase. So we look at it by area, generally comparing to market value. However, most homeowners, because if you're in the homeowner class, you have that 3% cap, didn't notice the increase as much as other people did.
Well, so when you say you look at the market value, how do you do that? Do you actually have somebody come and look at my house and say my house is worth X more, or do you use comparables from real estate
Comparable
or sales or what?
in that area. So we look
Okay.
at it by sections of the island or area. So we look at the sales, but we do look, go to evaluate homes, especially if there's been a change in ownership or new homes, and we apply a rating to it. Some homes are definitely, worth more than others.
So why would a house in Kailua Kona be perhaps a different assessment than the identical house in, say, the Puna district?
The difference is basically the land value. So you can have the same 1056 model home, on both sides of the island, but the land values in Kona are much higher.
I was talking with 3 of the county council members at a meeting a couple nights ago, and we were talking about this issue of how much property tax is paid in West Hawaii. It's pretty clear that part of what is being included are the high-end homes in Hualalai Resort, Kukio, Mauna Kea, Maunalani Resort, those places where, I don't know, maybe some of you live in those areas. I do not happen to, but I do know that the home prices there are way higher than the house I live in. So the question is, do you have any sense as to how much of the property tax comes from those kind of properties versus what I would have to say are the average kind of properties that probably most of us would live in?
So looking at those high-end residential resort areas along the coast, they bring in roughly $65 million in taxes.
Say it again.
$65 million in taxes, which is roughly about a third of the District 7, 8, and 9 put together.
The philosophy that seems to be a concern right now is whether taxes collected in an area should be where all the infrastructure funds are spent. And if that is a philosophy, that probably means that we should be spending a whole lot of money inside the resorts, which actually is not spent because a lot of the roads inside the resorts are privately put in by the resorts and privately maintained. But talk about the philosophy of spending money. Should money collected in taxes, let's say in Captain Cook, should Captain Cook, if they give $1 million in taxes, is that what they should get in infrastructure? Just talk about the philosophical.
I'd like to jump in on that,
Yeah.
because this is a question that was brought up back in 2008 when we heard a very passionate outcry of wanting two separate counties. If you remember back in 08, 09, that was a very prevalent conversation. I would tell people if you went to a road meeting or a park meeting, in no time it'd be a two-county meeting, because there was a sense that if we had two counties, we'd have better roads and we'd have better parks. So that equitable distribution or allocation of our tax dollars. But we are all one island, one community. With that mindset, that would mean that on Oahu, all the investment would go into Waikiki, Kahala, Waialae, and forget about Kailua, Kaneohe, Makaha, Waianae. Let them fend for themselves. We try to make sure that everybody in our island community, Kohala, Waimea, Ka'u, Puna, feel that they have upgraded transfer stations, police stations, fire stations. We make a commitment with all of our department heads to make sure everybody feels fairly and equitably represented. That's like saying, okay, let's create two counties and we'll have an entire West Hawaii county government. And if you had a council person, say from Kohala, Waikoloa, North Kona, the resort areas, North Kona, South Kona, you would have the same argument. I would say, hey, Captain Cook, Kealakekua, Kailua, you're on your own because all the revenue is generated here at Kukio and Hualalai and Mauna Kea and Mauna Lani. So the investment should come here, not south or north. And that's not our tax system, right? We try to hopefully work with our elected representatives in every district. And I have some breakdown here just with regards to property tax valuations and projects for area. For example, how much money is spent in infrastructure in Council District 7, 8, 9 versus the rest of the island? With regards to government, 52.9 million in West Hawaii, 69 million in the rest of the island. Housing, 35 million, 60 million everywhere else. And this is just 7, 8, 9. So when we say everywhere else, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Public safety, 6.7 million, 23 million. Roads, 103 million versus 166 elsewhere on the island. Parks, 36 million here in West Hawaii in 7, 8, 9. 150 million everywhere else. So although it's not a dollar for dollar, that's not how it works in a national, state, or local level. But that's why it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we're out in the community. That's why we made it a practice to take our cabinet into every community so that we could hear directly from people their concerns. They didn't have to come to Hilo. You didn't have to come to Kona. We would come to you. We know we can't go dollar for dollar, but we want to make sure that it's equitable. And I know, sometimes there's this sense that, look at West Hawaii. And I just think that's not an accurate representation. But I'm hopeful that people in the community, especially who call West Hawaii home, feel like in the last 8 years that there's been significant upgrade in infrastructure around housing, around parks, and certainly around programs and services that are ultimately implemented. So I'm hoping that's the sense, and I'm hopeful because somebody asked me one time, what are some of the things you're most proud of? One of the things we're most proud of is that we don't hear that anymore. You might hear it occasionally, but it's not a constant drumbeat that we need two counties. I think the previous administration and previous councils that provided the funding for the West Hawaii Civic Center, we came in, it was a design build, so now when I come up to the West Hawaii Civic Center, this was just dirt. There was no Anakeho Kaloli, there was no Civic Center. All of our cabinet members either are from West Hawaii or come to work in West Hawaii every single week. So we hope people have the opportunity to be heard, to have their important issues addressed. But we also got to make sure that it's not just East-West, that Waimea and Kohala, still deserve their representatives to hear them. You look at South Kona, Kau, Puna, and so, every community on this island is important. But at the end of the day, we're certainly hopeful that every island in this community feels fairly represented, because that's our goal.
Thank you. Somebody has a question about property taxes. Can the property taxes be made, right now, by the way, as I understand it, every class of property has a tax rate. So homeowner class, or if it's a second home property that's used for rental, different tax rate. This person says, what about having higher value properties pay a higher tax rate? So if my house is valued at $1 million, I'd pay a higher tax rate than if my home is valued at $400,000. I don't know if that's done anywhere in the country, but that's a question.
They do. No, I know Oahu, remember they tried to create that separate classification
and they got challenged
had
on
that
it.
huge blowback.
Yeah.
They tried to create like an A classification for homes over $1 million, and it had this huge pushback. They had to actually do away with that idea. Based on our classifications, we try to implement policy through the tax rates per class. For example, in agriculture, we want to protect open space. We want to incentivize and encourage people who farm to farm, people who ranch to ranch. So there's about 32 million in tax breaks there in an agricultural class. With regards to primary property homeowners, we want people to not be taxed out of their home. That's why the 3% cap, they pay $555, per thousand in valuation. The second homeowner, the residential class, they pay a significant higher portion. But even that, you think, that's the second homeowner. They pay $10 per thousand in valuation, $10 and some change.
$10.05.
$10.05. But that's the second homeowner classification. As you say, they might be the higher end home. But you got to be careful, because within that class, there's local people who have, second or third homes that they inherited or that they have on the side for their children. So with that, we have in housing, when we talk about making it affordable, we have an incentive where if you rent your house, your second home, and you comply with HUD regulations, about 75% of the median in that neighborhood, you receive the primary property homeowner rate per thousand. And then you have industrial, you have commercial, you have conservation. But we've tried to really look at it fairly and equitably. We've tried to minimize the impact. We know we have a small community. We don't have a large community, so we've got to be really careful with our property tax valuation. That's why we're really tough in our fiscal decision making, so that a small community doesn't bear too great a burden of delivering programs and services.
I have a question about capital improvement projects, Deanna. For those, we generally borrow money as a county, and we do that through bonds. We're close to the end of our time, but perhaps you could explain, have we exceeded our limit in borrowing, and what's our burden in paying back these bonds every year?
So basically, we look at the bonds as what's necessary. Some of the projects you heard about tonight, it would be impractical for us to, budget and pay for those all at once each year. So we do borrow bond money, which is much like a mortgage, and pay it back over 20 years. But the state statute is something phenomenal that they would let us borrow up to, but we don't follow that. We do something much more conservative and follow GFOA standards, Government Finance Officers Association standards, which say not to spend more than 15% of your total expenditures on debt service. And right now with the budget we just submitted, we're at 8.98%. So significantly below that 15. We do also monitor, because there are bond authorizations out there that the county council has approved over the years that we may not have fully spent. So if we were to spend everything we were authorized to spend, including some bond authorizations that are before the county council right now, we would be up at about 13.4%.
And how much money do we have to pay back on these bonds every year? And are we significantly more right now than we have been in the past years?
No, I'm right. The budget that just is before the council right now is roughly 43.8 million. And when Mayor Kenoi took office from Mayor Kim, it was roughly 43.3.
So it's the same.
So when we took office, people said, oh, built all these projects with capital improvement. You've spent over $600 million improving the quality of life of your community. And I've seen different comments where somebody said, oh, we're burdening the next administration. We're limiting their capacity to spend. And that's simply not true. When we took office, our debt service in terms of total was 8.98%, right?
This is what it is today. When we took office, yeah.
When we took office, it was 10.42%. Today, it's 8.98. When we took office, the debt service in 2009 was $43 million. Next year, when we leave office, the debt service is $43 million. So we were able to fiscally manage hundreds of million dollars in projects and keep it at the exact same level as when we took office. So there isn't this greater burden. It's no different. We're leaving the next administration a county government that is fiscally responsible, and certainly they have the capacity. Hopefully they work collaboratively with the county council, and they'll be able to move their projects forward as long as they keep Deanna and Lisa in place so they can fiscally manage this properly. No, I'm just kidding. But so I just want that to be made clear. It's not more than it was, it's less. And the debt service is what you pay every year for that borrowing capacity to build. And so that's where we're at. And we're very thankful that our fiscal team has allowed us to build projects while still being very responsible and conservative.
Thank you. Are we going to get more bike paths?
Oh, definitely. Every time first, for example, the Queenslay project, the first segment was completed between Hinalani and Kealakekei. In a couple of weeks, we'll be starting on the next segment, which would be from Kealakekei to Palani. And then with the going down Palani and using Queen K, you can make that complete loop. And I'm glad that this is going to be done in the next month or so.
October. Oh, the next month?
Oh, yeah, next month. Yeah.
I thought you was going to say October, November again.
Taking it to the limit.
I just want to thank the community for being so cooperative and collaborative these last 8 years. Whether we agreed or disagree on specific policy, a lot has been able to get done because of the involvement of the community, because of the engagement of the community, because the community had access to all of our department heads and working with the county council. I'm so proud to work with this county council, just excellent representatives from West Hawaii. And a lot gets done because people work well together. And because of that great working relationship, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody in Kona and West Hawaii. Mahalo.
And I want to invite you to come to the next forum because it's a mayor candidate forum. It's on June 22nd. It's at Kealakekei High School. It'll start at 6 o'clock. And if you want to submit questions for that, you may do so at the website, westhawaiiforum.org. This forum broadcast on Naleo soon, and they will also put it up on the same website. We really do want to thank all of the members of the administration for being here tonight, and for answering the questions and making sure we understand. And seriously, I urge you, if you have questions, give them a call, because they're pretty good at answering the questions. And I really want to thank you, Deanna, especially for making finance clear, because it's a very complicated subject. Thank you so much. Let's give them a warm round of applause for being with us.